Can you imagine writing a book that will go on to sell approximately 30 million copies, yet during your lifetime, it won't sell that well? In fact, you will have written that book anonymously, and nobody will know that you wrote that book except a handful of family and friends. So the question is, when will the world find out that your name is Jane Austen and that you are the author of 6 of the most iconic novels ever written? So Jane Austen was born in 1775, but her first book won't be published until 1811 when she is 35 years old. Now, she loved writing and began writing as a teenager. And she had written her first book by the time she's 20, but it won't be published until she's 35. Now, what was the first book published by Jane Austen? It was Sense and Sensibility, published in 1811, and this is a first edition of Sense and Sensibility. However, she publishes anonymously. Now, there is an author stated, and if I open it up, I will show you that she does put something in the author place, but it's not a pseudonym. But it does give you an idea of who she is. It says, by a lady. She could have put her name on it, but she chose to publish anonymously. Now, if we move on to Pride and Prejudice, which was published 2 years later, it now says that Pride and Prejudice is by the author of Sense and Sensibility, still remaining anonymous. And did you know that Jane Austen originally had a different title for this? In fact, this book was written about 20 years earlier, and the title was First Impressions. But by the time she got around to getting this published, somebody else had already used that title. But I think Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice is a better name. Now, after Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park is published a year later in 1814, and this is a first edition set of Mansfield Park. Now, does she change the author? It's different in every book. It never shows the same, but in this one, she goes, it is by the author of Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. So she lists her 2 previous books. Now, it'll be 2 more years before she publishes another novel, and that will be Emma. This is the last book that would be published during her lifetime. By now, Pride and Prejudice is kind of blown up. It's up to its 3rd printing, and this one now just states that this Emma is by the author of Pride and Prejudice. Now, Jane Austen passes away the next year at the age of 41, but there were still 2 novels yet to be printed, Northanger, Abbey, and Persuasion. And here is a first edition set of those. These are published in 1818. Now, who do you think the author will be now? She's now passed away. Obviously, her brother wants the world to know that she's the author, but if we open this first edition, it follows the previous format and says that Northanger, Abbey, and Persuasion is by the author of Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma. Well, when does the world find out that Jane Austen is the author? In this very book. In fact, if we turn the page, there is a small author's note, and it is the brother who tells the world that Jane Austen is the author of these books. And it's beautiful the way he does it. And I'm going to tell you, in fact, I've read it a few times and it's just stuck. I have it memorized. And I think it's beautiful how her brother tells the world that she is the author. And this is how it's done. And he does so by saying, the following pages are the production of a pen, which has already contributed in no small degree to the entertainment of the public. And when the public, which has not been insensible to the merits of Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma, shall be informed that the hand which guided that pen is now moldering in the grave. Perhaps a brief account of Jane Austen will be read with a kindlier sentiment than simple curiosity. That is how the world found out that Jane Austen is the author of 6 of the most iconic novels written in the 19th century. In the past 20 years, there's been a resurgence in interest in Jane Austen. Why? In large part due to the movies and TV series that have come out regularly. Almost every year there's a new one. And this is many people's first introduction to Jane Austen. And when they see that they enjoy the movies or the TV series, they go, wow, can I find these books? And they go out and find a nice copy of a book and they read it. And then they get to a point in their life where they go, I want to start collecting Jane Austen. So you can collect Jane Austen on any budget. Now, entry level is just going to a used bookstore and finding, the $3 to $5 paperbacks. But if you want like a nice book, you can get a book like this for around $25 to $30. And all of her books are available. In fact, it's just a beautiful set of these books. And for, around $150, you have Jane Austen. Well, if you have a little more than that, you can go to books like this. A lot of people want to get Jane Austen printed in the 1800s. And you start going after books like this, it's still going to cost you around $1,000 to $1,500. Or you get one turn of the previous century, you can find these nice books. Now, I'm telling you what I see them for, but if you get lucky, you could find at a garage sale for $5. Who knows? But if you are going to you hit the lottery, you're going for the big leagues, then a first edition of Pride and Prejudice, you won't find for less than $150,000 up to $250,000, depending on, the condition or backstory of that book. So Jane Austen has a pretty wide range. Now, if you go to a second edition of, let's say, Sense and Sensibility, that's about $15,000, but you can see there's a big range. So if your budget's $25, $30, you can do it. If your budget's $150,000 to $250,000, then you go for the Holy Grail, a first edition of Pride and Prejudice. I actually think Jane Austen would be astounded to see how popular her novels are 2 centuries after she wrote them. This is a person who really during her lifetime didn't seek the limelight. She wrote these books out of a passion for writing, but now, 200 years later, she is one of the most revered authors of the 19th century. And if you have enjoyed this brief Jane Austen video, like, comment, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments what types of videos you would like us to do in the future. Thank you.